Sorry.
Wonderful. We're going to give people a minute or two to hop on, but in the meantime, can folks share their name and city, state in the chat so we can just know who's from where? It's going to be fun.
Well, من آزیتا هستم، من کالیفرنیا هستم.
مریم یار.
بله، من آزیتا کالیفرنیا هستم.
You can say your name and your city in the chat.
Yes. Oh, chat, sure.
Thank you. And please mute yourselves. Thank you. All right, we got people from Los Angeles, Chicago. Wow.
Seattle.
Hills, Astoria, New York, Tucson, Arizona.
New Jersey.
La Jolla, Seattle. I love this. Boston. Washington, D.C., our nation's capital. Los Angeles. Wonderful. All right, we got people from Minneapolis joining us too.
And Kansas.
Wow. Kansas, please mute yourselves. Thank you. Please share your name and city in the chat.
This is Parvin Bakhtiar from Kansas.
Thank you. Please mute yourself. Share your name from in the chat. City, state in the chat, please. Thank you. All right, Wayne, Pennsylvania. Well, let's get started. Salam. Hello, everyone. Khosh Amadid. I'm Mariam Sabaghi, the NIAC Elections Fellow, joining you all from Chicago, Illinois. Welcome to NIAC members all over the country to NIAC Chicago's Yalda Night of Celebration event. Earlier this year, NIAC Chicago hosted a summer solstice event, and now we're closing out 2020, which has been a difficult year for all of us, with a bright night of Shabi Yalda. The holiday we're featuring today is Shabi Yalda, the ancient winter solstice celebration of Iranian culture. It marks the birth of winter and the triumph of the sun as the days grow longer. Iranians, Kurds, Afghans, Tajiks, and other Persian-speaking populations around the world celebrate this holiday. We'll hear more about the meaning and cross-cultural roots of Yalda with our honorable keynote speaker today, Lake Forest College's Professor Hafez Sadri. The Night of Yalda is a magical night. Traditionally, the family gathers at the eldest member of the family, if possible, to stay the night and have dinner. Red-colored fruits such as pomegranates and watermelons, invoking the glows of love, life, fertility, and the dawn that lies ahead. After dinner, families gather to read poetry from Hafez, written by Hafez, the famous 14th century poet from Shiraz. On Yalda, the book is used for fortune telling. Each person makes a wish, picks a random page from the book, and then someone else opens Hafez's book of poems and reads out the 14th century poet's response to the wish, with elders usually interpreting the poems. We'll also have a live fall reading from our very own NIAC Chicago co-captain today, so stay tuned for that. Huge special thanks to Shadi, our NIAC Chicago co-captain, who organized our Yalda event for today. It wouldn't have been possible without her. In honor of our ancient tradition, tonight we'll play some music and poetry as well, and food and some cocktail demos presented by members of the Iranian American community in Chicago and across the country. You truly make a difference for us, and we at NIAC are extremely grateful for your support. Thank you so much, and Shabi Yalda Mubarak. First, a short music video by Mehbanu Bland.
یلدا شده باز دوباره دل واسه خنده هات بیقراره امشب و تا صبح بشینی روزگار رو قشنگتر ببینی غم ها رو امشب رها کن آرزوهاتو با من صدا کن بذار که شادی بتونه خنده رو روی لبهات بشونه یلداتون درش عاشق هم بمونیم همیشه که این روزا تکرار نمیشه انگار غم یه سنگ تو شیشه نذار این غما زندگی رو بگیره نذار این دلاتون بگیره آره قصه ما همینه یلدا شده باز دوباره دل واسه خنده هات بیقراره امشب و تا صبح بشینی روزگار رو قشنگتر ببینی یلدا شده باز دوباره دل واسه خنده هات بیقراره.
Wow, that was beautiful. We'll turn to Marjan now, who runs Marjan's Persian Kitchen in Chicago. A little bit about Marjan. Marjan's catering is all about ancient Persian flavor spectrums and cultural heritage, especially her birthland of Gilan province. Throughout the night, Marjan is going to show us how to cook Gilani pomegranate fish. But before doing that, she will show us how to prepare for tonight from fresh farms in Glencoe, Illinois.
هر شب من شب یلداست هنوز برق نگاهت نور اینجاست هنوز به گرد چشمات من میخونم هنوز شب تا سحر با تو میمونم مثل تصویر مهتاب روی دریا مثل برق ستاره توی شبها مثل عطر خوش گل عقوقی مثل شبنم بهرگاهی تو باغی.
Here at Chicago, we are celebrating Yalda night. Pomegranate symbolizes the cycle of life. Some people sprinkle a bit of ground angelica over the pomegranate. This may balance the cold nature of pomegranate, which could prevent bloating and discomfort in the stomach. Persimmons are another must-eat fruit on Yalda night. Watermelon symbolizes health and well-being. I remember from the time I was a kid, my mom used to tell me at Yalda night that you should eat watermelon because that can immune your system in order to not catch a cold over the winter time. Dried fruits, seeds and nuts, known as ajil in Persian, symbolizes prosperity and wealth. I'm from northern part of Iran, province of Gilan. Stuffed whitefish and marinated olive has been a tradition Yalda dinner at my family since my childhood, which I'm going to teach you how to cook.
Wow, thank you so much for helping us acquire the ingredients for your dish, Marjan. Now let's make tonight's cocktail, Pir Moran, or pomegranate old-fashioned.
خوشم اینقدر خوشم زبون ازش قاصره ساقیا کاری کن امشب و یادم نره باده از نو بده هنوز حواسم به جاست اختیار دلم ساقی به دست شماست مستم کن جامو ببر بالا بزن به دست ما می پرستم کن تو عالم مستی امشب شب یلداست مست مستم کن جامو ببر بالا بزن به دست ما می پرستم کن تو آدم مستی امشب شب یلداست.
Wow, that was wonderful. Now we'll turn to Firuz Bahramizadeh, also known as Frank, to many of us in the Chicago area, who will be reciting poetry for us today. Frank was born in Tabriz, Azerbaijan, where his father was a judge. He came to the US for college in 1971, where he received his undergraduate degree and his MBA. His business career began with Hyatt Corporation in Chicago, where he was eventually promoted to food and beverage director. He then ventured from Hyatt to become a restaurateur in 1984. His lovely restaurant is called Frank and Betsy's Restaurant, and it is in Glencoe, Illinois.
دست و پا کردم بسی چون موج در دریای عشق، هرچه خواهی داشت این دریا ولی ساحل نداشت. انتقام عاقلان را از من مجنون گرفت، عشق چون کاری به کار مردم عاقل نداشت. با عرض سلام و تبریک شب یلدا، شعری هست در ارتباط با شب یلدا که حضورتون میخوام این شعر رو بخونم. شب یلدا ز ره آمد دوباره، بگیر دوست از غمها کناره. شب شادی و شور و مهربانی است، زمان همدلی و همزبانی است. در آن دیدارها تا تازه گردد، محبت نیز بی اندازه گردد. به هر جا محفلی گرم و صمیمی است، که مهمانی در آن رسمی قدیمی است. همه با انتظاری عاشقانه، نظر دارند سوی هندوانه. شمردم من ز چله تا به نوروز، نمانده هیچ جز 89 روز. کنون معکوس بشمارید یاران، که در راه است فصل نوبهاران. زمستان را بهار زندگانی است، شب یلدا شب فر و کیانی است. نشان از سنت ایرانیان است، شب یلدا و وصف بی‌مثالش، خداوندا مخواه هرگز زوالش. شب یلدا ز حزن و غم مبراست، بساط شادمانی ها مهیاست. شب یلدا بیا روشن روان شو، به نزد شاعران همزبان شو. شب یلدا شب سال است ای دل، مرا در انجمن شعر است محمل. شب یلدا بلند است و یگانه، نمیگیرد دلم هرگز بهانه. شب یلدا کنار دوستان باش، برای ما گلی از بوستان باش. برای ما گلی از بوستان باش. متشکرم.
Wow, that was just astounding. I'm very touched by that. That was wonderful. Let's watch now a video from Miniature Academy of Art performance in Tehran, dedicated to all Iranian women around the world.
چرخ میزنم در میان خاطرات دور، عکس‌های قدیمی، خانه‌های فراموش شده. صدای ترانه میپیچد از دهان زنان 4 قد بر سر و هزار عشق و آرزو در سر. زنانی که روزی سرآغاز زندگی بودند و امروز گرچه می رود نامشان از خاطر تاریخ، اما جان می گیرد به یک ترانه در خاطر ما. ماه منیر تمام زر، گل بادام صنمبر، بلور جان طاووس جان جان.
بیاوریمش تا نکردیم چارشم، جوراب ساخت بلندی عوض دل و قشم. به دل مهریم نگیر روی تو دیرم، بوتی من کبه من، بوتی من کبه من، قبله من. توی از سوی تو دیرم، شیرین مرکن یارم، شیرین نمیده جوابم، شیرین نمیده جوابم، شیرین مرد یارم، شیرین نمیده جوابم، شیرین نمیده جوابم، شیرین مرکب یارم، 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 شیرین نمیده جوابم.
Honestly, I'm just touched by how much our community is beautiful, powerful, and most importantly, hopeful in these troubling times. Everything from our cuisine to our poetry shines with beauty and hope. Now I want to introduce our keynote speaker for today, Dr. Hafez Sadri. Gordon Professor of Islamic World Studies and Professor of Sociology, Hafez Sadri is the author of Max Weber's Sociology of Intellectuals, Oxford University Press, 1982. He has written 3 books in his native Persian and translated Reason, Freedom, and Democracy in Islam. He's also translated the Shahnameh, the Epic of the Persian Kings. He has also translated Saddam City, Sahih books, from Arabic. Sadri has written regular columns for Persian and English newspapers and published numerous opinion pieces in The Guardian and Al Jazeera. Sadri is the creator of a multimedia suite of 6 stories by the Silk Road Ensemble entitled, quote, Heroes Take Their Stands, 2019, Kennedy Center for the Performing Arts, Washington, D.C. Dr. Sadri has also honorably served as NIAC'S Board of Advisors. Thank you so much, Dr. Sadri, for joining us today.
Greetings to all of you. It's a real pleasure to be in the presence of NIAC members. And I have been a member of the NIAC for a very long time. And I wish you a happy Yalda night. And I'm here to talk a little bit about Yalda. And I would like to share a screen so I can share with you my slides. Okay. Share screen. screen. Can you guys see my screen now?
Yes.
So this image is that of the first king of Persia in Shahnameh, in our national epic, by the name of Qumars. Of course, these paintings that have been, they're all from my translation of Shahnameh, and the person in charge of these beautiful paintings is Hamid Rahmanian, who has culled these paintings from about 85 different books, ranging for about 800 years. So some of them are from the Ilkhanid period, some are from the Juki kings of India, some from Ottoman Empire. They're not all from Shahnameh. But this is an image of Shahnameh, and you can see that the Qumars in this image definitely has Turkic appearances because it's from the Ilkhanid period. Of course, the image of Surush here is from a different period, and Hamid has combined these to create these images. So this is the Yalda night. Yalda is an Aramaic word. If we wanted to translate it into Persian, the closest cognate to that would be Milad. Again, from the same three-letter origin of Walada. In Arabic, Walada Yuledo. In Persian, we have Milad from this, Veladat from this. So the name is not Persian. The name is Semitic and is from Aramaic. Why? Because any civilization that had astronomy definitely figured out that this is the longest night of the year. And there are different celebrations of that in different civilizations, as I'm going to connect it to the Roman period, Saturnalia. But in Iran, this was this is called Yalda, and so this is a slightly doctored, image of Iran, and you can definitely see the Falat of Iran, the Iranian plateau, the Persian Gulf, and the Caspian, and this is the Western Iran. Iranians basically came from this area into the Iranian plateau and replaced the original civilizations that were there and peoples. And there are four groups of Iranians: Sogdians, Parthians, Medes or Mad, and the Persians. And so Medes created their empire here, and definitely they were in contact and sometimes conflict with civilizations of the Mesopotamia, but then Medes were replaced by the Persians, and this is the beginning of the Persian Empire and the kingship of Cyrus the Great. And this is the Achaemenid Empire that they created, as we can see in the great monuments of the Achaemenid period. Iran was kind of like the America of its time. It attracted talent and styles from all over the world, and we definitely see in Takht Jamshid or in Persepolis the different lifestyles of Mesopotamia, Greece, and all the civilizations of the area. And the writings that you can see here and also in Bistun are in different languages, in Aramaic, written in the cuneiform that was borrowed from, again, from the Sumerian and Akkadian. So, and this is actually one of the way the world discovered, unraveled the mysteries of cuneiform are from these writings. The point is that the Achaemenids wrote in different languages, and it was a multi-ethnic entity. And this is very much reflected in Shahnameh, where Iran Shahr or Iran Zamin is composed of different ethnicities. It's not only Persians, it's everybody. And then this is, if you have seen the dome of Sheikh Lutfullah mosque in Isfahan, definitely we are jumping forward to post-Islamic Iran. What is the connection between the pre-Islamic and post-Islamic Iran? Definitely what happened was that Iranians, unlike let's say Syrians or Egyptians, didn't give up their language. They kept their language. They just switched from one Middle Persian to the Dari Persian, but they kept their language. They did not become Arabs. The second anchor of Iranian identity is our calendar. Iranians kept their calendar. We never switched to the lunar calendar of the Arabs. And when you keep your language, and definitely when you keep your, let's call it pagan calendar, you are in touch with your pagan past. Pagan here, I'm kind of using it with a little wink. So Iranians kept their holidays. And there are 4 major holidays. All of them are related with 2 heavenly events. One of them is the event we are celebrating tonight, which is the winter solstice. I was told by Mariam that you celebrated the summer solstice, Tirgan and Yalda. And then there are 2 equinoxes, vernal equinox, which is Nowruz, and autumnal equinox, which is Mehregan. And definitely these are the 4 events of the year, the longest night, the longest day, and the 2 occasions where day and night are even Steven. And so Iranians kept their identity, although they became Muslims, but they kept their identity by these 2 anchors. We kept our language and we kept our calendar. And definitely that accounts for the continuity that is in the Iranian civilization that is unparalleled anywhere else in the, at least in the West Asian part of the Islamic world. So the winter, again, this is another image from my Shahnameh. This is what Hamid Rahmanian has done. If you see in the foreground, there is a silhouette. And this is the, Hamid made this for a night raid when Iranians are attacked by the forces of the Turan. General Piran attacks the forces of Iranians who have basically conducted themselves very badly in the middle of the war. And so they allowed themselves to be ambushed by the enemy. And so Hamid has made these silhouettes that didn't exist in Iranian miniature to show that we are kind of looking at the Iranians from behind the enemy lines. And these are some of the things that Hamid has done that enlivens the Shahnameh that we published together with Hamid. I did the translation, he did the images. So I've chosen this because I want to talk about the fact that Iranians, as many of you know, originally were not Zoroastrians. Iranians and Indians basically had the same religion. Zoroastrianism is a kind of a reform in that Indian religion that we can't go into. And basically, Iranians became Zoroastrians. And what happened to Mithraism, which was the pre-Zoroastrian religion of Iran, is it was absorbed into Zoroastrianism. So the main gods and goddesses were kind of sucked into the pantheon of Zoroastrianism. And one of them is probably the most important one, is the twin gods are representing the sun. Mehr is the sun and Mithra is his companion. And so these became part of Zoroastrian deities, and Anahita is another one, and all of these Mithraist deities were absorbed into the Zoroastrian religion. In Shahnameh, there is a big account of the emergence of Zoroastrianism and how Zoroastrian religion was spread with the help of Goshtas and his son Esfandiar, where basically he conquered Iran in the name of Din Behi, the religion, the correct religion, the Orthodox religion. And so what is the relationship of all of this to tonight? Tonight is the birthday of Mitra. Tonight is when the sun was born. Why is the birth of sun in the middle of the longest night of the year? You might ask. And the answer is exactly because from here on out, as our wonderful poem that was recited by the gentleman before me indicates, every day the day becomes a little bit longer, like a baby who is born and every day becomes bigger and bigger. The sun is born tonight, and every night from here all the way to Tirgan, when the longest day of the year is, this is the shortest day of the year, this little infant is growing up. So this is the birthday of the disk of sun. So Mehra'ini or A'in Mehrparasti is what we are talking about. And it actually, there is another syncretism with where the two religions from Iran that became universal are Manichaeism, Manaviyat, and Mithraism. And Mithraism was very popular with Roman legionnaires because Mithra is a very masculine figure. I've never figured out why in Iran Mithra became the name of a girl. You can hardly find a more masculine hero among the gods, and the legionnaires loved this masculinity of this religion, and so they made it popular in Rome, but formally what we find is that there was an Armenian king by the name of Tirdad the first. Armenians, again, are one of those Persian groups that move into the Iranian plateau. And at this time, 66 AD, they were still Mithraists. And so Tirdad goes to Nero and basically formally introduces the religion of sun into Rome. And today, if you go to the city of Rome, there are more than 70 underground Mithraist temples in Rome. So it was a popular religion. It was a mystery religion. It was kind of, you had to be initiated in it. Very much think of Freemasons, where you are initiated, you go through a certain number of stages. You start with Raven. Again, this is a masculine religion. Imagine they are meeting underground in this kind of Freemasonry kind of a religiosity, and you are initiated into the religion. And first you become a raven, then you become a bridegroom, then you become a soldier, then you become a lion, then you become Persian. Again, this is there is no mystery where this came from. And then the last two stages is son, and then finally pater or father. And each one of these are associated with one of the planets: Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Luna, Sol, that is Sol Invictus, the undefeated sun, and Saturn. Now, Saturn is the equivalent of the Greek Kronos, which was the god of time. The father, it was a Titan. It is before Olympian gods, and the birthday of Mehr the birthday of Mithra was the birthday of Saturn. Saturn was also born, guess when? Tonight. So this was called Saturnalia. And Romans were out partying and celebrating. And of course, Mithraists were also celebrating. Imagine Christians at this time are on an underground sect, and they are not favored because they don't respect Roman gods. And so they are wondering, what are we going to do? What are we going to tell our children? Right? It is attractive. And the children are asking, so what is happening tonight? Why, how come we are not participating? Probably what happened was that Christians decided this is the night of the birth of Jesus. There is no indication in the scriptures that Jesus was born tonight. It is probably at this time when they decided Saturnalia is Christmas. And actually, if you remember your gospel, when the three kings from Persia, the Magi, the Moors, come from Iran. Again, this is the connection. There are shepherds with their flock, and at this time of the year, you can't find any shepherds outside. So it probably was not just the birth of Jesus was not on this night, but they decided that it would be. In the Roman form of Mithraism, the iconography is the Petra gentric origin of Mithra. Mithra is born out of a rock. So on the left here, it is that. Another iconographical image is the lion-headed Mithra, and the third one is the killing of the sacrifice of the bull. Now, these are kind of a little bit strange because Zoroastrianism definitely didn't like sacrifice of the bull. So, but they found a way of kind of integrating that into Zoroastrianism. They created stories that I'm not going to go into. Suffice it to say that basically Mithraism, the birth of Mithra, Saturnalia, helped create the celebration of Christmas. These are all connected syncretistically together, and Iranians were aware of the connection between Yalda and Christmas. That poem به صاحب دولتی پیوندگر نامی همی جویی که از یک چاکری عیسی چنان معروف شد یلدا. So the idea is that keep your connection to people who are fortunate and they are important in the world. Look how Yalda became so famous because he associated himself with Jesus. And you can see that this is reversed, right? The idea is that Yalda became famous because he associated himself with Jesus, whereas in reality it was the other way around. It was it went the other way. So I'm going to skip over the idea of the sacrifice of the cow and how it was integrated into the celebrations and the rituals of Zoroastrianism. So again, this is an Iranian image of nativity, and again, the idea of the three Persian Moors, Magi, that's where the word magic comes from, come and visit. And again, this is a definitely a kind of reminder, a placeholder that Christmas is connected to the birth of Mithra. And again, I'm going to skip over some of these images because I think I'm out of time. This is about the first battle between the son of the first king, Siamak, with the forces of the devil, Khazuran, and he was avenged by his son Hushang, the third king of the mythological Iran. And this is on the right, you see that an image of an underground Mithraist temple in Rome. On the left, you see Zurkhane. There are two important connections with Mithraism in Persia, in today's Iran. One of them is Zurkhane, because Zurkhane is very much like made like a Mithraist temple. And you can see that gold in Zurkhane, where people, that depression in which they wrestle. And wrestling itself is part of a Mithraist celebration of a wrestling between Mithra and Meh. These two male deities wrestled, and Mithra was victorious, and he held his hand and helped Meh to stand up, which is again something that you see in the Iranian tradition of wrestling. And the word mihrab in Persian, in Iranian mosques, that is where the imam stands and prays, that is a Mithraist term, mihrabe. And again, it's very interesting that syncretistically, Mithraism has penetrated not only Zoroastrianism, but Islam. Thank you very much. I am done. This was my spiel.
Thank you so much, Dr. Sadri. That was amazing. I learned so much. I have so many questions for you, but I'll limit my time as well and make sure that we have questions from the audience. First, we do have some questions for Dr. Sadri, but if you want to ask a question, please share in the chat, and I'll make sure to read out loud your question and say your first name as well. So thank you so much, Dr. Sadri. That was amazing. I learned so much already in this 10 minutes that you just spoke. It's really great. So I have a first question, which has been submitted in advance by one of our audience members. So how and when did Hafez become associated with Shab Yalda?
Well, I know the answer to that question, and that is I don't know. Bibliomancy or fal gereftan exists in many different cultures. And in Iran, this is the association with Hafez is not restricted to Yalda. This is what people do in any occasion when people are together. And there are many Iranians who truly believe that Hafez can open his lesan al-ghaib, he's the tongue of the concealment, and he can speak to your soul. And I have known people who believe in Hafez as definitely a religion. And the idea is that Hafez can answer your questions. So they did this, they do this on this night for the same reason that they eat watermelon or other fruits such as pomegranates. And I'm saying this to preempt another question that people may ask: why do we eat these fruits? And the answer is because we can. They are there, and Iranians preserve many of these fruits in cellars, and they consumed it on this night because they couldn't go to a supermarket and buy fresh fruit, and so. These are things that are associated with this night.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. So the second question I have is that you talked briefly about the Yalda's Yalda tradition's connections with Christianity. So from what I know, in ancient Persia, how did the evergreen tree in particular become the chosen symbol of Yalda festivities? And another question I had to tack on to that is it true that Luther, the famous German reformer, around 1756 learned of the Yalda tree and created what we now know as the Christmas tree? If so, can you tell us more about that?
No, actually, for my current book that is on Obeid Zakani, I have looked into a lot of these, and because of my interest in sociology of religion, I have read deeply in the Reformation thinkers, and the idea of the tree basically is very much a medieval idea that kind of was associated, and definitely is one of those pagan ideas that rides on and syncretistically rides on the Christmas tradition. It is not related to Yalda. It is related. They are kind of associating old Norse mythologies with Christmas, with the Christian mythology. So it's much later, and then you have the idea of Santa Claus and things like that. Kind of keeps added on to the tradition.
Okay, well, thank you so much for the clarification. Really appreciate that, because that was a question that I've always had in my mind, and this was the perfect occasion to ask you. So thank you. So another question I have from one of the audience members from the forums in advance is, where are the various foods associated with Shab Yalda grown in Iran, the region, and what time of year are these foods harvested? Are those different foods used in different regions based on what grows locally?
Yes, this was not set like it is today in different areas. Many areas actually in Azerbaijan, where my parents are from, they hang, actually I had seen it when I was a child, they would hang different fruits in the cellar and they would remain fresh, especially grapes and fruits like that. So what they would eat whatever was there, but what is in season is pomegranates, but in different areas it had different things.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. That clarified a lot of things about, the various foods associated with Shab Yalda, where all that comes from. Thank you for that. So another question I had was, so Iranian Jews, who are among the oldest inhabitants of the country, in addition to Shab Chele, also celebrate the festival of Ilanut. I hope I pronounced that correctly, my Jewish friends, the tree festival at around the same time. Can you tell us in more detail about the connections between Ilanut and Yalda and the key differences between the two holidays and how extensively Ilanut is celebrated in Iran today?
Yeah, well, as you said correctly, Jews are older than Iran. Jews were in Iran before there was an Iran, because they were moved by the Babylonian kings after the first exile, and they were, settled in Iran about 200 years before Cyrus. So they are the oldest Iranians we have, and Jews basically they tried very hard to resist the influence, the Egyptian and Babylonian influences. They went out of their way. This is one of the reasons that they didn't, they don't emphasize hereafter, because that is something that was prevalent among Egyptians. So they would try very hard to resist those influences, and especially astronomy and astrology. And so basically, but having said that, eventually these things spread, especially because, I remember, actually, I went to a Jewish school in Iran, although my parents were Muslim, but there was a school that was very close to us, and it was called Ettehad No. I and my brother went there, and every day when the Jews had a celebration, we would run home and say, "Oh, Mom, there is Eid is coming," and my mother was confused, like, what kind of Eid? And they would say, "Oh, this is this celebration," and my mother would say, "No, that is Jews. This is not for us." And we would say, "How come they have so many fun holidays and we don't have them?" So imagine if you are Jewish in the middle of Christmas and your kids come home and say, "Well, my friends are all having a tree. How come we don't have one?" So there is this kind of influence eventually makes itself known, even in a religion that really is trying to remain pure from those influences. And so Jews, having been around for such a long time, they have assimilated many of these holidays, and again, they are the oldest Iranians that there are, and in the city of Chicago, they are the first ones to establish Persian schools, and very zealously kept their connection to Iran. In Israel, Israeli Jews have remained, again, very connected to their traditions, to their Iranian identity. And so this is very, very deep in the Iranian identity is very, very deep in the soul of Iranian Jews.
Wow, no, thank you so much. I mean, this also touched on an important point that we're now celebrating a happy conglomeration of Yalda, Christmas, and Hanukkah together all at once. And this is an auspicious time of the year. So Merry Christmas to everybody, Happy Hanukkah to everybody, and Yalda Mubarak. Another question that I have from the form that someone has submitted in advance: does the conjunction of Saturn and Jupiter have significance in Iranian culture and traditions? So perhaps more generally, I'm wondering about the role of astronomy and astrology in modern Iranian culture, given the significance of the winter solstice.
Well, the answer is no, because that conjunction happens once every 800 years. So this year, I like to look at the planets, and Saturn and Jupiter were following each other in a long distance, and they kept getting closer and closer. And I was hoping that when they come together, that we will have a spectacular view. But unfortunately, they are both very faint. Actually, it's hard even. You can see Saturn with naked eye, but it's very faint. So no, that does not have any significance because it doesn't happen annually.
Yeah, no, thank you so much for that clarification. That's another question I always wondered about, and I'm glad you answered that. So thank you. The last question from the forum that I have that has been submitted in advance before I open it to the audience. Again, if you have a question for Dr. Sadri, please drop it in the chat. I know some people have submitted theirs in advance. I will read those as well. The last question I have, I'm interested to hear more about your translation of the Shahnameh and how you feel the renditions and translations in prose and poetry in English from the Warner Brothers, for example, to Dick Davis may compare to it.
Well, how much time do I have?
You have a few more minutes to answer that question.
So in one sentence or less, yeah, it is a great privilege having translated Shahnameh. Fools go where angels fear to tread, and I definitely was a fool attempting it. I've talked about this in the introduction to the book. Dick Davis is truly one of the treasures, and he has translated many wonderful books of Persian poetry. His translation of Hafez, it pains me to say it because he's my competitor, but his translation of Hafez is superb. It's the best translation of Hafez you are going to get. His recent translation of Visur Amin is also very good. So we are lucky to have Dick Davis, but his book is very different from mine. His strategy is very different. I set out by admitting from get-go that I am going to, this is a abridgment of the text. Dick Davis starts with the ambition of translating the whole Shahnameh, but then he skips. Basically, 2/3 of the Shahnameh is not translated by him. Like entire chapters are, he represents them as summaries. Like, again, I'm saying 2/3 of the Shahnameh is not there, but the parts that are there, he has rendered completely. Everything is there, but then he skips. I don't skip any of it. I keep everything in, and I try to make a user-friendly edition of Shahnameh. The only thing I skip are a lot of names of people who don't have a speaking line. I elide those. I only talk about people who speak, and then when I pick people like that, then I try to put everything in. So these important characters become more three-dimensional. And the book is now in its 7th printing, and it is one of the 5 most successful books in the world in its price category. It has sold about 25,000 copies. And our next competitor is Madonna's book on sex. So you measure that's what we have been in this book. By the way, I had not translated the history. The last 1/3 of Shahnameh is historical. It's about the Sasanian Empire, and I had not translated that. I will translate that in the next couple of years, and the whole book will come out without pictures, hopefully to be taught in the universities, a lighter edition and more accessible to people who don't want to spend, $70-$80 on a volume.
Well, thank you so much, folks. Please keep your eyes peeled for Dr. Sadri's new book, a forthcoming book. But in the meantime, I highly recommend Shahnameh, his edition of Shahnameh, The Epic Persian Kings, Quantock Lane Press, 2013. So I highly recommend that book. I own it myself, so it's a great book. Thank you, Dr. Sadri, for that. I'm going to open up. I'm going to read off the questions in advance that has been submitted in the chat. So thank you to folks who've written their questions in the chat. So the first question that I have is from Jordan. He asks, was the old religion of Mithraism a lot different or similar to the Roman cult of Mithraism?
Yeah, okay, so it's very interesting. Mani, the 2nd century Iranian prophet, he believed that there are two Mithras, an evil Mithra and a good Mithra. And so he believed that the Romans believe in the Mithra that is evil, the one with the lion's head and that's born out of rock and stuff like that. So the two are different. But I don't believe that there are two different things. It's just a different angle of refraction, because in Rome it takes its own shape, very much like Islam in Malaysia is different from Islam in Turkey. And so religion goes from one culture to another culture, and especially in those days when communications were not as easy as they are today, of course the religions change shape. But insofar as I can see, it's the same religion with a different spin.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, thank you so much for the clarification. That was that really clarified a lot of questions I also had about the connections with the Romans as well. Yasi has a question. She thanks you a lot for the presentation. She asks, you talked a lot about the masculine side of the story. Is the story in balance? Is it in balance with any feminine presence?
Yes, definitely. I mean, there are feminine. Anahita, the goddess of water, is an important deity in Mithraism. There are female deities and there are male deities. But it is not the case that when you have a female deity, it means that women are respected in that religion. Think of Christianity. Madonna is everywhere. Does that mean that Christians were not patriarchal? No, it doesn't. Or in Islam, you have Hazrat Fatima everywhere, Hazrat Zainab everywhere. So, and the same goes for the idea that in the past we had these feminine religions and the earth goddesses, and then the male gods come and overcome this. This is an old kind of saw in the history of religion that is now has been debunked. But I want to emphasize that this masculine side of Mithraism is one of those things that happens in Rome.
Mm-hmm.
So in Rome, it kind of becomes the religion of the tough, rough, proud boy soldiers, so to speak.
Mm-hmm.
But it happens all the time in religions. For instance, Buddhism is a religion of intellectuals. In Rome, goes to Japan, becomes a religion of warriors. Zen Buddhist warriors, or Shaolin Temple in in China. So a religion that is purely an intellectualistic religion in India becomes a religion of fighters and soldiers. The religions change shape when they travel from one civilization to another civilization.
Okay, no, thank you so much for that clarification. Really appreciate it. So another question that Jonathan from Hyattsville has is, do the names for Tirgan and Mehregan also come from Aramaic, or do they come from other Indo-Iranian languages?
Oh, they are purely Persian. Yalda is really strange because, you know, this is the only one. But I think it is important to note that Babylonians were the most advanced astronomical civilization in the region. They were better at it than everybody else, including the Egyptians, including the Iranians. So it stands to reason that the name Yalda has been retained from Aramaic.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. I'm also a big I love learning languages, so that question really spoke to my soul. Thank you for that. So another question that Fatana had, she says, how Christianity currently sees the relationship between Yalda and Mithraism and the birth of Jesus.
Well, I mean, there is this common saying that keep Jesus in Christmas. I would say keep Mithra in Christmas. Yeah, it's just probably people who are more, I don't know, Orthodox or more serious. Probably they don't like the connections between religions, and they believe only there is right and wrong, and religions don't mix. The truth is that religions mix all the time. And Christianity mixed with pre-Columbian religions, and all over the Latin America, if you go, there are all these version of here and version of there, and those all appear in places of pre-Columbian temples. And so religions, Islam mixed with Zoroastrianism, Christianity with Islam, and various religions always mix with each other. This syncretism is the rule, not the exception. And so, so that is what we see when we look at these religions. Of course, people who are more orthodox in their own views, probably they wouldn't want to hear the history of it or note that the religion has been corrupted, so to speak. We don't talk about corruption. We talk about influences. But if you can look at it that way, and those people probably don't like to hear that religion has been influenced by other religions.
Okay, well, thank you so much for that answer. Really, that clarifies a lot of questions as well. It seems that it's also connected to a lot of the other questions other audience members had. Another question Jesse is asking from Los Angeles. Who is Sadri in Hafez's poems?
Okay, so that is also one of those points that are very important. There is a very good book on Hafez written by the name will come to me. Basically, looks at Hafez. This gentleman. I had a debate with him about modernity on Ufuk program in BBC. Dariush Ashuri. I highly recommend that you read that book. That's one of the best books on Hafez, and he talks about kind of intertextually where all of these ideas came from. And about 200 years before Hafez, these ideas started to percolate. Basically, Iranians went from mysticism of fear to mysticism of love. Mysticism of Ghazali, Imam Muhammad Ghazali, is based on fear of God. Mysticism of Hafez is based on love of God. And Hafez basically completely reverses the entire story of creation and exile from heaven as a form of divine comedy, where God and Adam basically were winking at each other, and this was a story that they had agreed upon. And Adam's exile from heaven was so that Adam would miss God. Because if you love somebody, you would love them that much more if you are separated. The separation was a divine plan. Adam knew what he was doing, and God knew what he was doing. It was they were kind of going through emotions. So this many of these ideas. So to answer the question, sometimes in some of the poems, Sadri is the guy who brings the chalice of wine to you. I mean, the real human being with the real chalice and real wine. Sometimes it has mystical connotations, means somebody who familiarizes you with the mysteries of existence. And sometimes we don't know which one is which. So there are three different occasions. Sometimes it's spiritual, sometimes it's physical, and sometimes it flips between this and that, depending on who is reading it and in what mood you are and what questions you're asking Hafez.
No, thank you so much. Thank you so much for that answer. So the final question that Ali is asking, I think he was asking about this. This is the last question before we move on to other segments of the program tonight. He's asking, what is the best translation of Hafez that you mentioned earlier?
It is by Dick Davis. Dick Davis's translation of Hafez, and there are very many translations that are completely trash, and they have no relationship with Hafez, and they are basically, it's kind of cultural appropriation. They use the name of Hafez to sell their books, and that is shameful. And there are some people who have tried to translate it, but they have failed. But I think Dick Davis's translation is excellent.
No, I agree, and it's I also own that copy on my bookshelf at home too. So thank you for that clarification. So now we're going to move on with Hafez Afal from our very own NIAC Chicago captain, Shadi. Again, thank you so much, Dr. Sadri, for joining us today. It was truly an honor having you today. We learned so much. So now it's time for Follow Hafez.
سلام به همگی. هپی یلدا. نیت کنید تا براتون فعال بگیرم. چو بشنوی سخن اهل دل مگو که خطاست. سخن شناس نی جان من، خطا اینجاست. سرم به دنیی عقبی فرو نمی آید. تبارک الله از این فتنه ها که در سر ماست. در اندرون من خسته دل ندانم کیست، که من خموشم و او در فغان و در غوغاست. دلم ز پرده برون شد کجایی ای مطرب، بنال هان که از این پرده کار ما به نواست. مرا به کار جهان هرگز التفات نبود، رخ تو در نظر من چنین خوشش آراست. نخفتم ز خیالی که می پزد دل من، خمار صد شبه دارم شرابخانه کجاست. چون این که صومعه آلوده شد ز خون دلم، گرم به باده بشویید حق به دست شماست. از آن به دیر مغانم عزیز می دارند، که آتشی که نمیرد همیشه در دل ماست. چه راه بود که در پرده می زد آن مطرب، که رفت عمر و هنوزم دماغ پر ز هواست. ندای عشق تو دوشم در اندرون دادند، فضای سینه حافظ هنوز پر ز صداست. یلداتون مبارک.
Thank you so much, Shadi Jan. We were extremely fortunate tonight because that is Hafez's one of Hafez's most super famous poems. So thank you, Shadi Jan, for reading that and making this night even more auspicious. And everyone, Yaldatun Mubarak. Now, thank you. We're going to move on to, we're going to return to Frank. He'll be singing for us an Azeri song on that happy note.
با عرض سلام مجدد، دوستان عزیز از من خواستن که امشب آوازی هم بخونم. اول میخواستم یه آواز یا آهنگ کوتاهی رو به زبان ترکی اجرا کنم و تقدیم کنم به دوستان عزیز آذربایجانی. Gittim yarın bahçasına, çiçekler açmış. Uyar benim yüreğime, yaralar saçmış. Uyar benim yüreğime, yaralar saçmış. Gel 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 benim yarım, sevirem seni. Eğer kısmetim olarsa alaram seni. Eğer kısmetim olarsa alaram seni. خیلی متشکر. در ضمن از من خواسته شده که این آهنگ معروف گل گلدون رو اجرا کنم که اونم چند دقیقه طول نمیکشه و با اجازهتون میخوام این آهنگم براتون اجرا کنم. گل گلدون من شکسته در باد، تو بیا تا دلم نکرده فریاد. گل شب بو دیگه شب بو نمیده، کی گل شب بو رو از شاخه چیده. گوشه آسمون پر رنگین کمون، من مثل تاریکی تو مثل مهتاب. اگه باد از سر زلف تو نگذره، من میرم گم میشم تو جنگل خواب. گل گلدون من، ماه ایوون من، از تو تنها شدم چو ماهی از آب. گل هر آرزو رفته از رنگ و رو، من شدم رودخونه دلم به مرداب. آسمون آبی میشه اما گل خورشید رو شاخه های بید دلش میگیره، در مهتابی میشه اما گل مهتاب از برکه های آب بالا نمیره. تو که دست تکون میدی به ستاره جون میدی، میشکفه گل از گل با. وقتی چشمات هم میاد دو ستاره کم میاد، میسوزه شقایق از دو. گل گلدون من، ماه ایوون من، از تو تنها شدم چو ماهی از آب. گل هر آرزو رفته از رنگ و بو، من شدم رودخونه دلم به مرداب. خیلی ممنون. Happy Yalda night for everybody in the world, especially the Persian, which is going to be the longest night tonight, and we're going to have a lot of fun and pomegranate and hindivane. Thank you very much.
Wow, Frank, that Firuz, that I'm just warmed. It warmed my heart tonight. That was beautiful. Now, thank you so much. I mean, I've honestly always been struck by the rich heritage of Azeri language and literature. Tonight, we've been celebrating Yalda, Hanukkah, Christmas. It's a beautiful conglomeration of all languages and traditions. And so this is beautiful. Thank you. So through that song today, Frank today shared with us the true beauty and resilience of our heritage, which unites everybody, right? So now we'll turn to Nariman Safavi, longtime commentator at WBEZ's NPR Chicago. Nari is also a NIAC Chicago Leadership Council member and a longtime NIAC supporter.
The Chicago winter chill is in the air, and we're about to approach the longest night of the year. Yalda Mubarak to everyone. In the 40-some years that I have been living in the United States, Yalda has always been an event where I celebrated my Iranian identity. And at times it was too esoteric and too exotic to share with my American friends the history of it, even though it came around Christmas. Later on, as I researched the history of it, found out that this is a part of ancient Persian history, and in their conflict in Anatolia with the Romans, where exchange of ideas was happening for 500 years in between them. And as the Romans Christianized, they actually started to celebrate Yalda as the birth of the Christ. And it became an interesting point of reconciliation of the two identities for me. As you start to celebrate the history of Hanukkah and the traditions of Kwanzaa and Christmas and Yalda, and as we start a new day in America, I hope, this is a fascinating point of conversation with your fellow Americans to explore the history of Yalda and Christmas and the common narratives with other traditions. Don't pass up the opportunity. Soon we'll be approaching longer days and maybe better opportunities for conversation with our fellow Americans. Yalda Mubarak to everyone.
Thank you so much, Nadi John, for sharing with us tonight why Yalda is so important to you and to our Iranian American community. Now we're going to turn to Hesam Dianpur. We're going to have some music now. We can't have Yalda without some music, right? So Hesam Dianpur is a multi-instrumentalist based in Houston, Texas. He was born in Tehran in 1985. Hesam began his musical journey at 7 years old with the tombak. And today he produces music that aims to blur the lines between different cultures and eras. So take it away.
سلام، یلداتون مبارک. طولانی بودن امشب رو جشن میگیریم به امید روزای بلندتر.
big thanks to Hissam for playing such a lovely piece for us tonight. I just found myself dancing to that. That was amazing. Now we'll turn to Marjan again, who will show you how to prepare the special Yalda dish for tonight and more music.
I would like to teach you Gilani stuffed white fish. To make the filling, coarsely ground 1 cup walnut in food processor and toss it in the pan. Let's ground 2nd cup of walnut before you add the rest of ingredients. About 3 to 4 cloves of garlic, 1 cup tarragon, that's my favorite, 1 cup basil, and half a cup fresh mint. Again, ground the ingredients before you add half a cup pomegranate molasses and 1/3 of cup raisin. Process all the ingredients very well until it forms as a paste before you add it to the pan. One tablespoon of Angelica powder, half a cup dried barberries, and salt to taste. Heat the filling for 10 minutes on low heat, then remove it from the heat and set it aside until it gets cool. Rinse the fish in cold water, then pat dry with paper towel and then rub it inside and outside with olive oil, then sprinkle salt, black pepper, and Angelica powder. Now it's time to stuff the fish with the filling. Here comes the fun part. You need to sew the cavity. Cover a baking sheet with parchment paper, add some oil, and now your fish is ready to go to the oven. I also wanted to show you this phenomenal work from Malus Design. These trays are my favorite. Their high quality material and elegant look next to this table runner really completes my table for beautiful presentation. Make sure to check her website and use the promo code MARJAN2020 for 10% discount. Let's place the fish at preheated oven at 400 degrees Fahrenheit for about 40 to 45 minutes. But halfway through, cover the fish with glaze of pomegranate molasses. نوش جان.
Nusha John, wow! I can't wait to see how that fish turned out. Now, time for some more. Now, time for some more music by Meherbanu Band.
شب یلدان شب عشق و شب شور و ترانه شب گل خنده ها گل نغمه ها یلداتون مبارک. هر جای این کره خاکی هستید در نهایت آرامش زندگی کنید.
Wonderful. Wow. I just always enjoy music by the Meherbanu band. They're just amazing. Please follow them as well on Instagram. They're everywhere. It's beautiful music. So now let's see how Marjan makes her nice dip and see how her pomegranate fish turned out.
Gilani marinated olive, zaytun parvarde, is great side dish from northern part of Iran. Or you can serve it as an appetizer. To start, coarsely ground 1 cup walnut, half a cup mint, 3 to 4 cloves garlic. Add 2nd cup of walnut into food processor. Followed with half a cup pomegranate molasses, 1 cup pomegranate juice, and finely ground all ingredients together. Add everything into a large bowl along with 2-pound pitted green olive, 2 tablespoons ground angelica, and mix it very well. This will taste much better if you fridge it for at least 24 hours before serving. نوش جان.
هنوز هر شب من شب یلداست، هنوز برق نگاهت نور اینجاست، هنوز به ید چشمات من میخونم، هنوز شب تا سحر با تو میمونم.
Wow, that pomegranate fish looks super delicious, and I'm definitely going to prepare that dish after seeing Marjan's demonstration tonight. So for those who want to learn more about Marjan's Persian Kitchen, you can visit her website at marjanspersiankitchen.com. Thank you. Now I just want to thank everyone so much for tuning in with us. We've just made our Yalda so much brighter together after such a difficult year. Open those pomegranates of new opportunities, and may you find their sweet goodness. As Sadri says, هر که مجبور نباشد به تماشا نرود، یار با یار سفر کرده به تنها نرود، باد آسایش گیتی نزند بر دل ریش، صبح صادق ندمد تا شب یلدا نرود. Now we'll close out tonight's event with our NIAC Chicago co-captain, Shada Isnashari. Take it away, Shada.
Thank you so much, Mariam, and thank you for being a wonderful host this evening. I also want to just give a special shout out to Shadi John for setting up the beautiful display behind you and pulling this event together, my co-captain. This has been such a wonderful event, and I'm so glad to have celebrated Yalda with all of you. And thank you to our Leadership Council members who have pulled in various people to make this event possible. So I want to share a little bit about my experience. I joined NIAC'S Chicago, the NIAC'S Chicago chapter, in March of this year. It was just being revived. A pandemic was well underway. And the chapter was brand new, but I was able to find community and connection in the midst of a global pandemic. Fast forward here to 9 months later, and I have made many new friends in the era of social distancing. And I've built a community of belonging with my Iranian network in Chicago, which was next to nothing, being a transplant to the city of Chicago. And I've found a connection with folks that share a passion for the beauty of our culture, but also a passion for seeing increased representation of our community at decision-making tables, including elected officials. We've done a lot of work around the elections this year, which has been really inspiring. So this is also the second cultural event that we've been able to put on this year, again, in the midst of a global pandemic, bringing our community together. I'm so excited to see so many people here from across the country. So I really just think that none of this would have been possible without NIAC. And so if you enjoyed tonight's event and would like to see more events like this in the future, hopefully in person sometime soon, please, I encourage you to donate whatever you can to NIAC to ensure that our local chapters can keep surviving and thriving. We can continue to host events like this, bringing together musicians, cooks, and people of all different backgrounds to share our culture and increase representation of Iranian Americans throughout all parts of our society. So I think the donation link just went in the chat. So please, any little bit counts. And if you'd like to get involved in your local chapter, please do go to NIAC'S website, put your name in there and get involved. I assure you it's lots of fun. And you'll come away with lots of new friends. So thank you everyone for joining tonight. Yalda tu Mubarak.
Thank you so much, everyone. Yadotun Mubarak. This was wonderful. I'm so grateful we celebrated with you all. This was just wonderful. May you always be healthy, happy, and full of joy. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us tonight. Yadotun Mubarak.